So we are going straight into this Monday morning with a really interesting chat today. We have Jessica Shand with us this morning. I'm so excited for this conversation. We were just chatting before, talking about how we've kind of been along this journey side by side in a strange way. Jessica just said that she's been doing my classes since when I had about 12,000 followers. So really since the beginning. And Jessica is a naturopath nutritionist that specializes, I can't say the word naturopath. Naturopathic nutritionist that specializes in hormones. And what I love about Jessica is she's so open with her followers about her own health journey, but also just gives such easy, tangible tips every single day. So I love following her and I'm really excited for this conversation. So thank you so much for joining, Jessica. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Bryony.
Thank you. I know. I feel like this is so kind of meant to be.
It's like a full circle moment because it's like, just started years ago that we kind of first connected.
What year was it? Do you remember when you?
Well, I can't remember. I feel like the years have kind of blended into one. But it was literally when you did like your first Zoom, because I was like one of the first people on your, when you first started doing your Zoom class.
Yes.
So this is going like,
And was that
years back.
Was that before you were sharing everything you're sharing now as well?
I was sharing at that point, but in a slightly different way. Yeah, but I was. It's kind of evolved over the years, like since just finding my speciality and just kind of obviously writing my book and everything, and just how things have kind of
crazy. Your journey's been
evolved.
Amazing. And what I really love about what you share is that you're very specialist on hormone health and how we can really optimize on our hormones and just feel good every day. I love your messaging. It's so kind of aligned with what I put out there in terms of a balanced approach. So can you take me back to your own kind of personal journey and why this is all so important to you? Can you just share a little bit about that?
So going back to my early 20s, I can only describe it now as I was like living in this kind of state of fight or flight, but it's like I didn't realise at the time. And like, when you're just so focused on your career and just nothing else kind of gets a look in, I was just go. I had a health and beauty PR agency at the time, which I sold 2 years ago. But I was so focused on building that I kind of took my hormones and my cycles and my health for granted, to be honest. It was only when we wanted to have a baby that, of course, I needed my cycle to be regular and I needed for my hormones to be in balance and be in check, that I then kind of investigated things. I went to see a gynecologist who was amazing. We ran some tests and I found out I actually had a polycystic ovarian syndrome, so PCOS for short. So that's an endocrine disorder of the ovaries, and it all kind of, I also had a thyroid dysregulation as well. And it was honestly like a light bulb moment. I was like, okay, I get it now. I get why I've been feeling, how I've been feeling, but kind of just ignored it all of these years because I just needed to kind of crack on with work and my business building and stuff that it's almost
didn't
like
pay attention.
Yeah. It's like I wasn't listening to my body because I didn't know how to, and I was kind of just ignoring everything that was going on. And so, then I found out I had PCOS and an underactive thyroid, and then it really kind of just inspired me to like investigate my own health, like really try to search for natural ways to reverse and heal PCOS and to ultimately to optimize my fertility, because that is what kind of gave me the incentive from the beginning. It was literally all about that kind of, my quest.
Seriously.
But now looking back, I think it's such a shame that so many women, including myself, only pay attention to our hormones and our health when something goes wrong. And I think that so now I feel very passionately about empowering women and educating women to really understand what their bodies are doing, and in a way that's really easy to integrate and to actually apply to our day-to-day lives. Because I think it's all very well knowing the science and the complexities of the science and what the different chemical messengers do in our bodies, but I think it's about how you actually take that information and apply it to your day-to-day habits and your meals and the way that you live your life, which is why I'm so I'm such an advocate of, daily habits and, different ways of kind of supporting ourselves just through food and through lifestyle as well. But yeah, going back to my story, that's how it all kind of kicked off. So I discovered what was going on with my own hormones and health. And then I started looking into things. I literally transformed my diet. When I say, honestly, when I look back at that Jess, I'm just like, I can't even relate to that girl. Because,
really?
Yeah, it's just I think it was just that penny drop moment of like, I need to make changes and I need to make them now. And I'm such an impatient person. And when I decide I'm going to do something, I'm like all in. Yeah, I was like fully in on it.
I can see that in you because you're so consistent. Even with your Pilates, you're always posting, and I can see that you're just the most consistent person. What were the signs that you, now looking back, had in the beginning before you were diagnosed with PCOS? What were the signs that you were starting to show?
I had very irregular cycles. In fact, I didn't have a cycle for a really long time.
Okay.
And I think it's like the whole narrative of growing up, when people would be like, oh, I'm on my period, or I wish I didn't have periods, or stuff like that. Like I was kind of almost a bit like, well, I don't have to kind of
worry
deal
about
with
it.
Yeah. So I didn't have periods for a long time. Then they came back, but they were very, very irregular. And that's a key symptom of PCOS.
Right.
I could never shift weight around my tummy area, even though I was working out loads. But now when I think about it, my body was in like a state of inflammation, and I was like high cortisol, living in this like fight or flight situation. I had really bad anxiety at the time, to the point where sometimes if I went into a shop, I would have like a panic attack if I saw. It was a really it was in social situations, but in really random
moments. That
just up. Like going to get some milk from Tesco's or something, and then it would like come over me, and I felt like it's almost like now when I join the dots and I think about what was going on, it makes so much sense. But then all of these different symptoms that were happening, but mainly around PCOS, for me, it was my cycle and the fact that I held this weight around my tummy area that I could never shift, even though I felt like I was working out. And I say eating well, but I would skip meals. I wouldn't eat breakfast ever. I would live off caffeine. I would try to eat as little as possible because I wanted to be skinny, basically. Yeah. And then I would be like, okay, I need something. That feeling of like, just I need to get
a sudden hangry type of feeling, yeah.
And then feeling quite addicted to sugar, and then it's
such
that
a
whole
cycle, yeah.
Exactly. So when I look back now, and I also had quite bad skin as well, and when I think about it, it was that typical hormonal kind of like breakouts and acne around the kind of like jawline area. But yeah,
I actually had the exact same thing.
Did you?
And actually, people talk about, is it PCOS face or something?
Yes,
or cortisol face, don't they? And I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had that. And I had all the hormonal acne. I had, terrible bloating, stomach pain, all those things. And I'm like, crazy to think that I just lived like that. And I think when you kind of describe how you felt, I think you're talking to so many people that are listening that almost that becomes your normal. And until you really know how to listen to your own body, you can't see it. You don't know what to look out for. And you're kind of living at 50% of what you can actually achieve. Do you know what I mean? Because you're super stressed, you're not fueling your body, your hormones are imbalanced, maybe there's fertility issues or something like that, and you're not kind of living to your...
You're not thriving.
You're not thriving.
Surviving, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So, okay, so you went all in on the research at this point. And what were the things that you did instantly? Because you said you went all in overnight. What were your instant things?
It was almost like I just become this like different version of Jess, like overnight. I was like listening to everything. I was like changing my diet. I actually went fully plant-based for a really long time. So I cut out meat. I cut out also sugar, caffeine. It was like I did, and I wouldn't recommend doing this like
cold turkey overnight.
Not with everything like that, but I think it's because I so badly wanted to be pregnant and for us to have to start our family that I was like, and I felt quite alarmed by the fact I had PCOS and the thyroid, the underactive thyroid, that I was like, I need to have this overhaul and I just need to do everything I can. So I changed my diet. So I went completely plant-based. I'm not now, but I was then for a long time. And the sugar, the caffeine, I found really, really difficult because I was like living I was like living off coffee, basically. Yeah. It'd be like the only thing, it'd be like my ritual it's my ritual now, but in a very different way, in a very nourishing, like enjoying way, or like coffee or matcha.
But I guess
then it was like,
as you weren't filling yourself up with food, probably coffee was replacing that.
exactly,
So
yeah,
it must
exactly.
have been such a weird kind of
So then
shift.
I'd gone from having basically like skipping meals and then just getting by, you know, on the bare minimum, to then having like 3 nourishing meals a day. And I was like, wow, I can't believe that something as simple as literally eating 3 meals, 3 healthy meals, could have such quick transformative effects on like how, just in terms of like energy levels and sleep, and then my anxiety and my kind of like mental and emotional well-being as well. It had such a like quick knock-on effect in terms of like just how I felt mentally and how I was showing up. But what you said before about your normal and like how you kind of like you get used to that. I talk about that a lot on Instagram and with my clients. Like it's you know, we shouldn't just accept our normal. It's like when women have PMS, premenstrual syndrome. It's like you just get used to feeling like 3 out of 10, and you just accept that because you know so many people suffer with those types of symptoms. But I feel really passionately now about telling women and, you know, reminding us that actually we should question our normal and we should be kind of striving to feel optimal, not just okay, you know? And it's so within our reach, you know, just using food and just being very targeted and intentional, and also having a bit of discipline as well in the areas that your body and that your life really need you to kind of show up.
So you went all in on the food. You were having the 3 nourishing meals a day.
Yeah.
You cut out coffee, you basically went plant-based. So did you go plant-based because of advice and research, or was that just something that you kind of
the more
giving
I read,
it a go?
The more I read, the more I also enrolled at the College of Naturopathic Nutrition. So I was studying I first trained as a health coach, and then I wanted more. So then I did the full-on 3-year course in becoming a naturopathic nutritionist. And so a lot of that as well was like the healing powers of plants. And I truly didn't realize like the impact that it would make. And I kind of just, the more that I learned, the more that I felt like that was the best option for me at the time. And it was a really good thing for me as well, because I had IBS and a lot of gut issues. So the plant side of it and supporting my microbiome at the time was something that was really important, and that was just a really good way for me to get lots of different plant varieties in, lots of different vitamins and minerals and stuff.
And now I see that you do eat meat and you eat fish, right? So why is that? What was the reason that you made the change in that?
It was actually after I gave birth to my little boy, Sebi. He's nearly 5 now.
Oh,
so yeah.
So actually, that's a good question. How long did it take you then, once you had kind of thought, okay, I'm going to go all in, to then getting pregnant?
So this is probably about maybe like 18 months, roughly. So yeah, it was, for me, that feels really quick.
Yeah, especially when you were so irregular.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But at the time I was like, come on, because I was just so impatient. But it was really motivating, and it was such an incentive, because just in terms of how my symptoms had turned around, and I was just feeling better in all areas. But then, to your question about meat. So I gave birth and I was in the 4th trimester, and I was feeling actually very good overall. I felt like I was actually quite surprised with how great I felt, because you hear so many horror stories about how women feel. But I had this like real burning desire to just eat meat, and I hadn't for so long. And I thought, actually, I'm going to practice what I preach. I talk about intuitive eating and, connecting with our bodies. That for me is such a big part of it. Our bodies are always communicating messages to us. They're always asking us for things. And I think that we should listen. And that when we tap into that and actually eat in alignment to what our body is asking for and honouring our body's needs, that's when we can truly feel our best and step into a whole other level of thriving and feeling the healthiest we can feel. So I actually didn't massively overthink it. It felt kind of weird at first, because I felt a bit like didn't make a big thing about being plant-based, but I almost felt like my identity was
I was
a
just
bit
about
wrapped
to
up
say,
in it.
sometimes, and I was one of those people, when you go plant-based, it for some reason by default becomes a bit of your identity.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden you're craving burgers and eating Greek yogurt and all these things.
Yeah, because I saw you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine now not eating meat. I always ate fish, so I was never fully plant-based, but I didn't have dairy and meat, and I still don't eat eggs. But But yeah, now it's just such a staple in my day, like every single day.
It's
So
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I felt exactly the same. I felt like, oh wow, my identity was so much more wrapped up in this than I actually thought.
yeah.
But actually, it's
When
so
you just
good.
listen to your body. But a lot of people say listen to your body, you know, intuitive eating. But what actually is that? What is intuitive eating, and how does someone listen to their body?
I love this question because I've actually got a whole chapter in my book about how to eat intuitively and how to learn to connect with your body and tap into what your body's asking for. And I think a big part of that kind of like is so weaved in and is at the core of my method to hormone, to, you know, supporting our internal balance of hormones and to living in our,
Yeah.
you know, in the best, most balanced state we can be. And so, yeah, there's a few practical ways to do it. So it can be as simple as when you're eating your food, literally closing your eyes for like 2 minutes. Like 2 minutes out of like an 8-minute meal is so doable. But just closing your eyes, acknowledging the taste and the textures in your mouth of the food that you're eating, like really kind of like soaking up the nourishment. You know, it's more than just food, it's the whole experience.
Like really being mindful of what you're eating and connecting to the food.
Yeah, literally. And it sounds a bit kind of like, you know, woo-woo, but I do think it is it's so profound, the impacts that it, you know, in terms of just that positive feedback loop of like the joy that you get from your meal, and then your brain reminding you later, actually, that felt really good to eat that meal, and this is what, you know. And it's about listening to your body and the feedback.
It's almost like taking note in the moment when you're eating, realizing, okay, this is what my body was craving, this is what I'm giving it, and this equals me feeling really good. So note it, remember it, and then later on, when you are craving something else, or when you're thinking, oh, I just want to grab something on the go, it's reminding you,
Exactly.
you know, you're worth it. You're worth spending the time cooking a nourishing meal for.
Exactly.
I was actually just saying this to Sarah earlier, you know, like when, for example, if I'm home alone and I just think, oh, I'll just do something easy and grab something. Actually, no, those are the times that I should be spending the time cooking, making myself a really nourishing meal and
going the extra mile for yourself. Yeah,
definitely.
It's so true. I think as well, I was talking about this the other day about making things special for yourself. So, you know, you say you fancy something like something really sweet and you're like, okay, I always think like you could have like a date with some peanut butter or something, or some nuts and berries or whatever it is, whatever your thing is, but put it into a nice bowl, make a herbal tea, sit down, like even if it's literally a couple of minutes, just to kind of like make it a moment and make it special for yourself. And I love what you just said about like you are worth it, because we are worth making the effort for. And I think it's reminding people that that's so true. You know, it's not about just grabbing something and just like wolfing it down. Actually, even making something doesn't have to take ages or be a faff to do, but something really simple that you can throw together, but that actually feels so good. Even the ritual of like being in the kitchen and like piecing it together,
and even just like laying the table for yourself, and making it like lighting a candle, making it a moment, and sitting there and not being on your phone and just enjoying your food. It feels so good.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, sorry, you know, you asked me about the intuitive eating piece as well. So yeah, just to finish a few other tips. So like acknowledging the taste and textures, like spending a few minutes to actually allow the food to digest and not eating really, really quickly. So our brain and our gut, I think it takes something like 18 minutes for our brain to catch up with our gut. So by eating really slowly and chewing the food really, really well in our mouths really helps and aids that whole digestion process. And, you know, it's important to digestion starts in our mouth. So it's really important to really make that, even
give
if it's
it
like
time.
Even if it's like a little moment, I think it's important to really soak that up. And also things like breathing before and after, stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system, like really kind of like tuning in to our bodies in that way is really helpful. And if you're someone who has a lot of different symptoms going on, for example, like gut issues or very low energy, or, you know, lots of any kind of like PMS symptoms as well, taking like a food and mood diary is good as well. So you can kind of just track what's going on. You can it's kind of like evidence on paper that when I ate this, I felt like this, or when I had this, I felt like that. You know, it's just very like basic, and then taking that information and thinking about where you are in your cycle, tracking your cycle, just kind of like being your own health investigator and just being so aware of actually what's going on for you, and like not what someone else is doing, but it has to be so unique, and you have to just start by tuning in just in that very basic way, and then you can kind of build on it from there.
Piecing things together and actually realizing what's making you feel your best, what's giving you energy, and really supporting everything that you have coming up that day. One of the big things for me that I've done in terms of balancing my hormones alongside everything else I do, but one thing that I've done that I really see the difference in is making sure I'm having breakfast really basically as soon as I wake up. I actually kind of have 2 breakfasts because I have one before I work out and then one after I work out. So I have every morning I will have a protein shake with 2 scoops of protein, water, ice, a frozen banana, and a spoon of peanut butter. That's my breakfast basically every morning. And then as my mid-morning snack, I'll have Greek, as like my post-workout, I'll have Greek yogurt and berries.
Nice.
So I'm getting that.
I love that you have 2. That's easy.
Yeah, because I have 3 meals a day and 2 protein snacks. So my kind of first protein snack is like my second breakfast. And I really believe that you have to fuel your body to balance everything and for it to thrive.
So
I think it's so underrated, and so often people are waking up rushing around throughout their day and not giving themselves that time, like to really set yourself up for success. I even think like I kind of plan my day around when I'm going to eat.
Yeah, me too.
So like today, for example, I knew that now I have 3 podcasts recording back to back. So I had a huge brunch just before we came here in between a meeting. I was like, no, part of my day and what's important is eating. So
I love that you prioritize it like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's
so important. It's such a game changer, and you feel so much better. And I cannot tell you how transformative really fueling your body from food is. I mean, you obviously completely agree, but I just want to tell people at home, please eat and fuel your body, and don't be scared of carbs,
And it's so simple as well. Like I think sometimes nutrition, it can feel so kind of like out of reach, and there's so many conflicting opinions on things, and to fast or not to fast, to eat carbs, and it's like, actually, it's so simple because your body will always tell you the answers. And like I said before, our bodies are communicating with us. It's our job to listen, but actually it's our job to create that kind of like baseline routine of like exactly what you just said, like waking up, having breakfast, like fueling your body, putting the nourishment in, making that important. And then everything else will kind of like fall into place. And that is exactly what happened to me. I was going from not eating breakfast ever. For me, breakfast was like, oh, why would I eat breakfast? Because what a waste of calories.
Skip. Yeah, exactly.
What a waste of calories on breakfast. I don't even like breakfast. And I used to always say, I never feel hungry anyway, so I'm not going to eat it. And now I know that actually that's not a great sign in terms of like from a gut perspective, and just like creating that very consistent kind of like rhythmic way of eating.
Because your body gets used to it. So if you never eat breakfast, you won't feel that hunger because your body doesn't know to feel it. You haven't kind of like turned it on. Do you know what I mean?
That's literally it. And like our hunger hormones are so responsive to like our lifestyles and our habits, and like gut brain connection. And it's like the more consistent we are, and the more we treat our bodies to consistency and like this rhythmic, predictable way of eating, the more our bodies will start paying us back in predictability. And that's what we want. We want to be able to live we want to have to know that every day we're going to feel good, and we're not going to be suffering with all of these symptoms that we can kind of treat with food and lifestyle.
So would you say one of the kind of hormone hacks, is to start your day with a really healthy breakfast? You know that old saying, like, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Do you buy into that, and is that a good hormone hack?
It really reminds me of something my granny used to say to me.
Yeah, it's like Kellogg's advert or something, isn't it?
It's so funny. But yes, I do. I think starting your day as you mean to go on with nourishment at the forefront and making that a priority. I also think even from like a kind of like self-care perspective, and in terms of like really cementing routines. And I think having breakfast is like you're showing your body, you're showing your hormones, that you're putting nourishment first, you're putting your health first, and you're really priming your body to be in this like very very balanced state. So getting protein in there, but not just protein's obviously so important, but also fiber. I think sometimes we need fiber, we need antioxidants, especially when it comes to hormonal health. We really do need like this variation of, we need the macro and micronutrients to really kind of like make sure that we're nutritionally topped up in all ways. So yeah, breakfast is really important, but I think just literally having the 3 meals, creating those, carving out time to actually sit down and eat, even if it's literally 5 minutes and you're like rushing in between meetings, just having like 5 minutes, or if you're really busy with kids and just stuff going on, I think you can always give yourself just a couple of minutes.
You can always fit it in and meal prep or whatever it is to make it easy for you. So can you talk us through what you eat in a day to focus on hormone balancing?
Yeah, someone asked me the other day, like, why do you never do like what I eat in a day? But the reason I don't do it is because I just feel like it's not a good representation of like whole health. And I think that everyone eats differently. And sometimes I think it's really hard to like just take someone's one day and be like as gospel, as like that's how you should eat. But as like a typical day, I love to get protein and fiber and antioxidants into my breakfast. So whether that's a smoothie with berries, so frozen berries are great and a really good like cost-effective option for people as well. So you don't always have to have fresh and they just last longer. A really good quality protein powder I think is a really good thing to have in your like, in
kitchen
your like
cupboards.
Yeah, kitchen cupboards as well. I think getting in like have you ever heard about seed cycling? Do you know about
Yes, I have. Yeah. And I know that you're big on it.
Yeah.
So you talk us through first what you eat in the day and then how you add seed cycling in there. Yeah.
So I add my seed cycling seeds into my breakfast. I'll come back to it in a minute. So yeah, I have my breakfast. I have that like pretty much first thing in the morning, like within the first like half an hour to an hour of the day. And then I will have like my immunity tea cube, tea, it's like ginger and lemon and hot water. And then I always have my caffeine after breakfast. And then I'll have lunch. It's usually like a batch cooked meal. So I'll do that on like a Sunday, or I'll do like one batch on a Sunday to do a couple of days. And then Wednesday I'll do it again. Or I'll make a few different like nourish bowl type things with what I have in the fridge. But usually it's like lots of different vegetable varieties literally thrown into like a roasting tray. And then I pair it with some sort of animal protein as well. Or sometimes if I'm just having plant-based, I'll pair it with like a plant protein like buckwheat or quinoa. Then I'll have like leafy greens, and then I will have, so that'll be my lunch, and then or something like a stew or curry, depending on the season we're in.
Yeah.
If it's winter, I'll have something really warming. And if I'm in the winter of my cycle, so like the luteal or the menstrual phase, when I'm on my period, I'll definitely opt for cooked vegetables and nourishing vegetables, just because it's easier on digestion, and it really helps to naturally boost our hormones, because our hormones are plummeting during that phase, during those phases of the cycle. So that really helps to just create this really like
solid
nurturing
foundation.
Yes, exactly. That really kind of from an energetics perspective. And then for dinner, it will be usually something like fish or so like salmon with like different like stir-fried vegetables or tray-baked vegetables, or stuff like that, or again like something like a butterbean curry or something like that, depending on where I am. But yeah, basically lots of different plant varieties.
And what are your snacks? If you are craving something sweet or something in between meals, what are your go-to things to kind of have at home when you feel you need something extra?
So my go-to snacks, I have a very hungry little boy who's constantly, he says the word snack more than any other word, I think, in the English dictionary. So we always have a really good supply of snacks. So I make my collagen and cacao balls with like oats, collagen, cacao, dates, and nuts and seeds and stuff. And I'll put my seed cycling seeds in there too. So I'll have a batch of those. Or I recently have made these cashew butter cookies. I need to send you the recipe. They're so good.
Please do.
They're so good.
We should add those to the app.
Yeah, they're so yummy. Or sometimes it's literally just like Greek yogurt with some berries.
Okay.
Or like my seeds, like seeds. So, but I actually don't often feel that snacky unless I'm in like I said, like that luteal phase, like just before. Do you feel hungrier during that phase of your period?
Yeah, just before. Oh my God, I could eat a house.
It does really make you feel like
it affects me so much. And especially now living in Copenhagen, it's very cold in the winter and you just feel like you just want warm food all day. I do find that my matchas, I have 2 matchas a day, and I have one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and I do find that helps me because it gives me that sweet kind of
boost.
Exactly. That feels like my sweet treat, but then it kind of sustains my energy as well, so I'm not dipping. But what are you drinking now? Because you mentioned you were having caffeine, but in a more sustainable way. So tell me what your caffeine intake is.
So previous Jess would have like 3-4 cups of coffee a day, just because I was like, I'm hungry, so I'm just going to have coffee as my thing. And so now I make it into more of a ritual. So I'll put my collagen in there. I will really enjoy it and soak it up, because I know I'm only going to have one. Or if I have matcha, then I'll have matcha as my second. So with matcha, I do 2 things. So if I'm like in the lead up to my period or on my period, I'll just have matcha, and I won't have a coffee at all.
And why is that? That's interesting.
The L-theanine and the antioxidant profile of matcha is so incredible that it's literally like, and the amino acids, and it's so ideal. It's such a perfect way to consume caffeine, but in a way that kind of like maximizes the nutrients at a time where our bodies just need as many nutrients as possible. And you don't get that real kind of like, I don't know about you, but I tend to feel more, if I'm going to feel anxious, I'm going to feel it at that point of my cycle. So I do everything I can not to feel like that. So things like switching over, being mindful of the caffeine I'm having, and switching over to matcha because it's a more sustained caffeine and energy release compared to coffee.
When do you feel more anxious? Sorry, when was that?
In the lead up to my period.
Yes, I'm the exact same.
It's just,
and I don't drink coffee, so I can't compare, but I have had it in the past, and it gives me anxiety. So I think that's a really good tip, having matcha or something else, or trying to cut down on your coffee in the lead up to your period, I think is a good tip.
And even that's like a way of showing your body like care and being very targeted. It's a very simple switch, but it's like it's being
preparing as well, intentional. That's really what I love about what you kind of share. Everything's very balanced, mindful, intentional. Nothing's kind of extreme. It feels very nourishing. So yeah, I love your messaging. I think it's really great. So can we talk about the role in lifestyle?
Yes.
How much of a role does lifestyle play in our hormonal balance?
It's huge. I think it's so underestimated. Obviously, people understand it now, but back in at the start of my journey, when I was like learning about just switching up the type of exercise you do and how that will have an impact on your things like your cortisol level and your nervous system, I was a bit like, really? How could that actually make I was all up for trying it, but I was kind of couldn't understand if it would actually make a huge difference. And my gosh, the difference it actually made. Crazy. And I think when you pair that with the food, that's when the magic really happens. But before, so I was going to the gym, and like literally I had the gym at the end of my road, so I was literally in there every day, and I felt like I was just run, like I was just so high, like high energy output, but also just like it wasn't
on high alert.
And I was already like that, so for me it just made it 10 times worse. And now obviously I do your Pilates and I love it, and it's like it feels so grounding to me, but I also feel like I can see that my body is like toned, and I feel good, and I it's like, again, it's that feedback loop for my body. I come out of a session, when I'm streaming your app, and like afterwards I not only feel good in my body and I feel strong, and the next day I can really feel it in my muscles in a good way, but actually I feel like I've done something for myself. It feels like a nourishing exercise to do. And even like when people say, oh, just do Pilates during the menstrual phase, and I think actually you can do it the whole cycle, but you can just level it up and do your advanced classes, and that's how I adapt to my cycle. So I'll like level it up in like towards the end of the follicular and the ovulatory phase, and I've got much more energy, and then I will kind of like do the kind of like slower workouts like during my period and stuff, but I still always do it because I feel like
that's your consistency,
and that's my
what
thing.
You've kind of tapped into.
And I love it so much. It makes me feel so happy as well as like in my body. So
I'm so happy you feel good doing it. That's kind of why we wanted to do 3 schedules a week, because like if we were to do power and energizing, these are your classes and you're not feeling that, we want it to reflect how you're feeling, so then you can choose the calm schedule for that week and kind of move with you. But I really think what you just said about the nutrition and the movement piece coming together, that really is the magic. And I just want everyone to know that it does take a 360 approach. You cannot expect to just, eat a salad and become skinny, or do Pilates and become super toned. It takes everything. Also, sleep plays such an important part. So it is really creating sustainable change that fits into your lifestyle and something that you really enjoy and look forward to and can stay consistent with every day. Like you just said, leading up to your period, that there are still classes that you can do for that phase.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
No, exactly. And actually, on those days that you do, maybe you're not feeling that burst of energy, but even if you do a 15-minute class, you will feel better for it.
That was literally me the other day. I was like, I just don't have to be bothered. And then I was like, no, I know now that how I'm going to feel afterwards. And you get those endorphins, and then it has such a positive knock-on effect. It's like, that positive habits breed positive habits. I say it all the time, but it's so true. It's like you do one thing to break the cycle of, like, if you're in a bad mood or your day hasn't gone to plan, but you can still turn it around by just doing one thing, and then it has this amazing, like, positive cascade effect in your brain where you're like, okay, actually now I'm going to make a really nourishing meal, and now I'm going to make sure that maybe I won't go to bed at like midnight, and I'll actually go to bed a bit earlier. And I just think it's kind of like meeting yourself where you are, being really kind and gentle, but not so kind and gentle that you're not actually moving forward. And I think sometimes...
Yeah, because challenge also feels good.
Exactly. And it's needed as well.
There's kind of sometimes this soft messaging, which is amazing, because I do believe in the balance and this sustainable approach always. But I also think that challenge feels really good.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
I think that you do have to push yourself every day to do these things. It's not going to be easy for you every day, but it will be easier to stay consistent with it because it does become a part of your lifestyle. But pushing yourself, challenging yourself also feels good. And like you say, that positive feedback loop. You do something that you thought, I can't do this. I really can't do a class today. You do that class and you're like, yes, I did it. Okay, now I'm going to have a good breakfast. Now I'm going to have a great day at work. I'm going to get my steps in and I'm going to feel positive. And, I've done my challenge of the day. So I know that I can take on the day. So you do have to have some element of push in your day, I think.
I think it's important. I think it's so important. I think it's important to have boundaries and a bit of discipline and knowing. I think just gaining clarity on actually what is it that you want to feel like. Which areas of your health do you actually are asking for you to show up and doing. I call it the life audit. It's like a 3-step process of like just gaining clarity and just being very clear on exactly what it is that you want to work on in your health. Is it your sleep? Is it, do you have PCOS, or do you have some kind of like condition that is asking you to make changes? Like, do you have some gut issue? Like, what is going on? Like being really, really clear, doing that food diary and the food and symptom diary, tracking your cycle, and then kind of like piecing it all together and then using that intuitive eating chapter of my book to really learn how to just connect with your body. It kind of all comes together and it is really, really powerful. But it is just about wanting to do it. And I think sometimes that's, you have to want to, you have to want to improve your health. You have to want to heal. You have to believe that you can and know that you're worth it. And I think feeling empowered by the choices that we have and what's available to us is so important, because there are so many resources available. Like your app is incredible. Like there's so many like amazing free recipes like online for your app, like my book. Like there's so many amazing people to follow, and it's like just kind of like discovering what works for you and what's going to help you.
And part of the audit, I think you should do an Instagram audit and just follow the people that make you feel good and give you tips and, maybe hide a few people.
Yeah.
So I think there's so many things that you can kind of do in that life audit that reduce any triggers. I only have 5 more minutes with you, which I can't believe it's gone so quick. I knew that we could just talk for ages. But we're going to do a bit of a quick fire round. Yeah. So first question is, can you explain seed cycling?
Yeah, so seed cycling is a naturopathic practice. It's actually an Ayurvedic kind of practice using seeds to balance our hormones, basically. So you rotate the different seeds during the 2 different phases of the cycle, so the follicular phase and the luteal phase. And the whole idea of it is to literally, it's a prime example of using food as medicine to support our hormone balance. So the 2 seeds, they do different things. So in the first part of the cycle, they basically help to modulate estrogen and keep it in balance. If there's too much or too little, it will kind of balance it out. They've got something called lignans in them that help to do that. And then also pumpkin seeds are really high in zinc, and that helps with progesterone production in the second phase of the cycle. So you have a tablespoon of each of those seeds.
What was the first seeds in the first cycle?
Ground flax seeds.
So flax seeds and then pumpkin seeds. And they need to be both ground.
So flaxseed definitely needs to be ground. Pumpkin doesn't have to be, but I think it's better to just grind them all down because your body just absorbs them a bit better.
Okay.
And I think just chuck them into a smoothie and sprinkle them over your yogurt bowl, anything. Even a salad if you want to, but basically just get them in every day. It's the rotation of the seeds that creates the impact, the balancing impact of them, but you have to rotate. So after day 14, so on day 15, you switch over to sesame and sunflower seeds. So the sesame and sunflower seeds are high in nutrients like zinc and selenium and vitamin E. So you support things like thyroid health, but mainly it's about the progesterone in that second phase of the cycle. That's the dominant hormone at that time. So that the 2 seeds together, they help to balance out and to kind of like optimize and encourage the optimal ratio of estrogen and progesterone, are 2 key sex hormones. And that is really helpful for irregular cycles, things like PMS and PCOS, fertility, perimenopausal symptoms. So it's just a very easy kind of, I think it's like a no-brainer thing to do, because you even get like the fatty acids, the fibre. It's like a real kind of like gut booster as well as supporting your hormones.
We'll also, just because I know that that's a big topic, we'll go over that in a Q&A. We'll follow up with an email Q&A to kind of include some more seed cycling tips. And then what are your top 3 supplements that you think most people can benefit from?
Supplements is such a tricky one because I think it really does have to be so specific to the person. And I think self-prescribing is not a great idea, and it's good to work with a health professional. But I think like basic ones would be like magnesium. I think you just can't go wrong with magnesium, and most people are deficient or have low magnesium levels, especially because as a culture we're quite stressed, and I think magnesium is important for nervous system regulation. So magnesium would be a good one in terms of an all-rounder for things like hormonal health, but also energy production and stuff. A good B complex is a good idea. It's not just about B12 but having that whole complex is really powerful for like I said, overall hormonal balance, but also like energy production, how our body uses and creates energy in the body. Another one, it's really difficult because there's just so many, but depending on what is happening for the person, but something like ashwagandha or Agnus castus, these ones are really good for general kind of like hormone balance, or like using adaptogens are really good because it kind of like adapts to what you actually need. What you actually need. And I think that is they're quite useful ones to kind of like dip into, but it is important to make sure things like the dosage and that they're not interacting with other supplements that you're taking. Omega-3, actually I'd probably say omega-3 as a more baseline one. Omega-3 fatty acids. That's
great.
A good one.
That was a good one. And what is the book that's changed your life other than your own?
Other than the Hormone Balance Handbook, a book that's changed my life. I feel like I needed to prep this one. Actually, probably Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which I know you've read. We've actually had a conversation about this before.
It's amazing.
On Instagram, haven't we? Yeah, I honestly think that changed my life, because I think when I was going through my anxiety and kind of phase of just like not things like public speaking, even until like the last year, I found it so hard to do anything, even like podcasts and stuff. So I feel like there has definitely been growth. Books like that have really helped me. Also, I loved your guest, Alex Law.
Oh, she's
that
amazing.
Anxiety, that episode was really, really helpful. And also her book with Mo, that's an
Unstressable. Really good.
Amazing. I think that's really good. Mel Robbins, the Let Them theory is really good. So I'm like saying like loads now.
I love it. Okay, and if you were to give one piece of advice in terms of everyone's well-being in one sentence, what would your kind of mantra be?
I think it would be to nourish, not punish your body. Like really put nourishment at the forefront. Think about what you can add instead of what you should be taking away. Think about the nutrients that you can add. And actually something that I say to my clients, and something that I feel is like my almost like blueprint of like my whole thing, or my whole method, is like we all have 3 meals in a day. That's 3 opportunities, 3 key opportunities to nourish our bodies and to improve our health. And it's literally like our health is in our hands. We can literally use those meals to feed ourselves better, and feed ourselves not just better, but to feeling thriving and feeling our best. So using our 3 meals for advantage, and using food as medicine to help us.
Love that. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you, and tell us where people can buy the book as well?
Thank you so much for having me. You can find me over on Instagram, so it's jessicashand_. My book, The Hormone Balance Handbook, is out now, and you can buy it on Amazon or Waterstones or any of the book retailers out there. So yeah.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. So many tips, and I'm excited to follow up with a newsletter and go in deeper on all your tips. So thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much, Bryony. Thanks for having me.